if I can have everybody stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We only had 4 actual checks, so I'm going to read those. Carol Bellevue, $125. Richard Chamberlain, $200. Doug Cowie, $200. And Charles Williamson, $200, for a total of $725. Whoever gets the time cards, the top one's the election sheet. Yep, as an
So, you see that? No.
What's that?
Oh,
You
it's
take the
right
stickies
there.
off the page, the top of the library though?
I didn't take a sticky note out.
What?
What?
There was no sticky note. Unless it's
There's
stuck.
some on this
Oh,
one.
yes. And so the one that's in your hand is the very last page.
Okay.
Ready to rock and roll?
I think so.
Kaylee Dvorak, $200. Katie Coppola, $195.30.
That's right here.
Yep. Oh, I have it here
Oh,
too.
you have it there too? Oh,
Shayla Gherkin, $65.03. Just tell me this, I'm just gonna keep going.
Oh, yeah, no, just keep going. Yep.
Mary Lyons Hall, $220.08.
Yep.
Janice Weirs, $838.28.
Yep.
Kiki Donis Wall, $729.65.
Mhm.
Joyce Kegel, $583.38.
Mhm.
Caden Blazik Ahern, $720.31. Jeffrey Collins, $811.31. Wayne Robinson, $1,056.84. Jason Gagnon, $55.41. Andrew Gray, $672.57. Joseph Bird, $1,110.43. John Bryan, $679.15. Adenara Chalmar, $255.04. Evan Crafts, $209.76. Keith Culligan, $271.99. Elisa Sanuski, $384.40. Alexander Hall, $457.53. Julie Labonte, $388.42. Timothy Labonte, $652.65. Nathan Richard, $827.71. Katarina Tennant, $795.20. Jack Tremblay, $712.16. Trevor Whippy, $745.22. Jillian Benedict, $635.64. Karen Clement, $1,326.18. Heather Haggett, $359.37. Tamara Peak, $797.98. Daphne Wass, $843.96. Kip Kaiser, $834.31. Thomas S., $64.64. Kendra Brackett, $581.29. Justin Doty, $1,200.65. Robert Gagnon, $561.09. Matthew Kelly, $989.95. Robert McCon, $198.38. James Saltzman, $1184.01. Chris Spitaleri, $810.45. John Ventura, $1499.50. Jeremy Wister, $149.89. Jared Wright Ward, $1204.84. Caleb Smith, $18.47. Marley Beltry, $64.64.
All right.
Total direct deposit, $26,963.06.
For a combined total of $27,688.06.
You good?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it me?
You're reading.
You're,
Oh, really? AHA Training Center, 2655. RJ Hardware, 5998. Bergeron Protective Clothing, $1,550.74. Block 5 Technologies, $333.50. Boundtree Medical, $197.50. Chapel Tractor, $8.40. C&M Cleaning, $1,770.01. Dana's Towing and Repairs, $446.83. E&J Auto Parts, $852.71. Exeter Flower Shop, $195. First Light, $172.21. GKG Planning, $19,477.50. Great America Financial Services, $317.09. Hartman Oil and Propane, $999.43. Joyce Kegel, $387.13. Mobile Trash Compaction, $200. New England Vehicle Outfitters, $135. Rockingham County Chiefs, $50. Rockingham County Registry, $2.60. Seacoast Business Machines, $23.83. Starkey Welding and Crane Services, $200. Stratum Tire, $701. Tidal Communications, $208.90. Trustees of Trust Funds, $416.59. UniFirst Corporation, $63.40. Valak? Is that right? $211.45. Viking, $19.09. WM Corporate Services, $2,633.55. WB Mason, $14.20.
Good job.
Total $31,674.19.
We also had a ACH payment to Swayze for $209,983. We had 23 hours of overtime in the PD and 2 in the fire department. And then she needs the yellow one, the rec one, or the orange one.
I passed up on that opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Taking a motion on the consent agenda.
Thanks, Joyce. So moved.
Do I have a second?
You made it.
I'll
Unscathed.
second it, and per a request from last meeting, I will just read out what's in the consent agenda for this week. Public minutes from 11/8, the rec manifest, the treasurer's report, and building permits.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We have a special guest tonight. Mr. Moderator, would you like to come to the table?
I think I'd like to stand so that I can see all of you as well as the board. I asked this afternoon, Karen, if I could speak tonight about the situation that we have going with our absentee ballots. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Dick Chamberlain. I am town moderator and also supervisor of elections. I've been town moderator since '79, that's 40 years. But every 2 years I get reelected, so here I am again. And I love the job. And nobody runs against me. I want to talk with you about what's been happening. Let me take you back to the primary election in September, just to point out that there was a request for a revote, which we did, and it came out exactly the same as the way it was during the election time. And that was not an awful big surprise, but it was a nice surprise. And that was our feeling about the professionalism that we have going. Now, let's take a look at this present situation. Here is how here is a portion of how absentee ballots are handled. When I open the meeting at 7 o'clock, I announce the number of absentee ballots, and I announce it, and it's up on the wall, because we need to do that legally, so that then 2 hours after that, we can start dealing with the ballot. This time, we waited until longer because we knew that there would be somebody from the state coming to go over all of the kinds of issues that they do, and we wanted to get through that and not interrupt dealing with the absentee ballots while she was here. And Daphne can perhaps tell you about it a little bit later. There's a long process with the ballots that Daphne and some of the ballot clerks go through. And eventually, they come to me. The envelopes are open, and there were 328 absentee ballots. And Liz McConnell and I sat across from each other, squeezed into a corner. And at some point with the select board, we'd like to talk about actually moving the election to the school in the future, because when I say squeezed into the corner, I mean squeezed into the corner. There just isn't enough room for elections like we had with 75% of the people voting. But anyway, Liz and I sat across from each other, opening the ballots and setting them aside to get ready for me to put them into the machine. Twice during that time, I was called away on a semi-emergency. Part of my role as moderator is to help out people with their balloting legally that need to be helped out. And there were two situations. One with two parents and a 19-year-old son in a wheelchair who could not speak but was very, very intelligent. And the three of us worked together to help him fill out his ballot. The other was a woman with early onset Alzheimer's who did not have her caregiver with her. And I know that particularly for the last 10 years on a monthly basis. I have led a support group at an agency in Portsmouth for Alzheimer's caregivers. Anyway, what I'm saying, what I'm building up to is that I think that when I came back from one of those two helping times and sat down to continue going back and forth with Liz, because I think the problem is either with me or we'll never know the answer. And it's more likely it's with me. I think that I must have picked up a stack of envelopes thinking that they were empty ones and put them into the box. I think that that's what happened. My understanding is that the envelopes were all together, that were the ones that later at the state found ballots inside. My guess is that what's happened. And then, of course, after that, I stood for a lengthy time at the machine while somebody passed me over the ballots and I fed them into the machine. Both Daphne and I have been asked to meet with the Board of Commissioners and maybe somebody from the Attorney General's office on the 28th of November. And during that time, we'll just explain, as best as we can what the situation is. I had never, ever encountered an experience like this before. The buck stops with me. I am responsible as supervisor of elections, and the buck stops with me, whether something's screwed up or not. And that's kind of where it is. And I'm open to any question. I think I'm correct in saying that when we came up with the fact that there were 16 points between Melissa and Eric, and realized that there needed to be a recount, At first, I thought that we'd do the recount like we did in September, but not for their kind of position, not for a state representative position. That's done in Concord. And so that's why it was done. My sense is that there is enough space between all of the other votes that nobody else will be affected by whatever change might come about in relation to those 27 absentee ballots. But the hurtful thing to Eric and to Melissa is that at the moment, Eric is the winner and Melissa is the loser, and it could continue to be the same, or it might be the other way around. And you know, we're not going to know. And my guess is, I haven't asked this question, but my guess is that we can't probably touch the ballots or touch the process until we go through the Board of Commissioners deal on the 28th. Questions? Yes, Lois.
Today, my understanding is that the checklist recounted. Did the checklist include those 27 when they did the count?
Yes.
They did.
So just to clarify, there's a 27 vote difference between the vote count that emerged from the
Yes.
election versus the checklist?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
Perfect, that's what I was
correct.
hoping would happen.
That was done.
That
But-
would make sense.
But I want to tell you folks, we have got a real professional in Daphne. If you don't know it, hear it now. And I am enormously impressed, and I am so fortunate to work with her.
We have a real professional in you too, sir. Yes.
Whatever the case, I'm either responsible for this, or we just don't know. We don't know what the situation is. Other questions or comments? Yes, Becky?
What is the authority of the commission you're meeting with? Can they decide to count the ballot? Do they have discretion, or do they automatically count?
Do you know?
I believe that they do have the discretion to decide if they're going to be counted or not, which is why today I spent most of the day providing them with the checklists, the absentee ballot lists, all of those things, so that they can see that the ballots were checked in. They just were not put into the machine. So my guess is, and I don't know this for a fact, they will definitely count those ballots. It is important, and I believe that all of us in the town, the select board, the moderator, myself, feel that they should be counted.
If they didn't count the ballots, I'd raise hell.
Yes.
Because the ballots have to be counted, they have to be included.
One minor thing, and
Yes,
Melissa,
sir.
you may have heard this at the same time. I believe Secretary of State told us at the final meeting that they are not automatically counted. They need to be requested by one or more candidates to be counted. And, you know, based on what you just said about the difference in the checklist, and Melissa put this online yesterday, that, you know, I think we all support, I hope that they do get counted.
My apologies, Melissa and Eric, for this screwed up situation.
It's a human error.
Yep.
Anybody else? Anybody?
Thanks, Dave. I think Melissa has a question.
Melissa's got her hand up.
Yes,
So,
Melissa?
first, thank you for coming out tonight. It's late, it's cold. I appreciate it. And I think that when something like this happens, it's just how we improve down the road and we learn from it. And this isn't addressed to you, this is addressed to everyone involved. So thank you for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the fact that everyone is in unison as far as supporting having these votes counted. May I ask another question about Election Day and about the chain with the ballots? Is that possible?
About what?
I don't know how to put it. I guess
Oh, go
the chain
ahead.
of custody is, so at one point it was my understanding that we had one of the candidates go to pick up the absentee ballots at the town hall. Now, I
Yes.
want to make sure, is that correct or is that?
I think Daphne's got a good response to that.
They were not absentee ballots that were cast. They were empty absentee ballots that I needed, that I forgot to bring because we had some COVID situations. So these people were going to need an absentee ballot. So So I did not bring those, that is what was touched, not any ballots that were voted on.
And one of the unfortunate things is that that was misunderstood, misinterpreted, and by wildfire, everybody outside, not everybody, but numerous people outside were getting all bent out of shape over it, not really knowing what the situation was. So that's
And
what
the
it,
reason, if you don't mind, that Russ went is because I needed Jen at the ballot box. She's the only one that could be at the ballot box at the time. And Andy was making breakfast. It was a big mess. That's the only thing that happened. There was nothing, and he's, even as a candidate, he can touch an empty ballot. He cannot touch a cast ballot. He cannot help at the end of the night any ballots at that point.
So these are just ballots that were never
These were like
filled out.
Blank.
No, they're as if somebody were coming to get an absentee ballot. That's what he had. The requests, because I needed the requests, and then I needed the blank ballots. Because we did have several COVID situations that we needed to
So for
take
me,
care of.
and it might be like this for other people too, I've never requested an absentee ballot or turned one in, so the Zoom process is all new to me, I know nothing about it, you know what I mean? I'm learning as we go.
Yep.
Thank you.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dick.
Thank you. Documents?
This is the letter of engagement for Plotzik and Sanderson to do the 2022 audit.
So Plotzik and Sanderson is our auditors. It just requires one signature, so I'll take a motion for me to sign.
Motion?
Second.
Motion and seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
This is the annual registration form for the 2023 DOT Consortium with Center for Occupational Health.
So I don't know if you guys know, we're part of the DOT consortium. They randomly pick our CDL drivers for drug tests, and they go and get tested.
And they just process them.
Yes.
Yep.
So same thing, one signature, I'll take a motion.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
A second?
Motion and seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
The property owners of 427 Middle Road have requested a confirmatory deed. They are requesting that the name of the successor trustee as well as the trust is who is the property transferred to. I had council review it and they are comfortable with its contents.
Motion.
Motioned and seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I hope everybody got a chance to check out the new and improved agenda. Committee updates? Everything that was presented to BudCon last night was passed as submitted. I think there's a couple budgets still open that we did, and BudCom didn't meet that week, but
Right, the planning board and code enforcement were already voted by the select board, so they'll go to, they're on this agenda for the 11/21 meeting.
anything from ZBA?
So nothing from ZBA, but from energy and efficiency and communications. So as far as communications goes, they are going to present, I think, next week, their recommendation for the creation of subcommittees in the future. So it'll be the finalized form that applicants would fill out, and it would be sort of the protocol for how we handle it. So it'll be something that they'll be presenting to us, and then we'll give them feedback. I think that's next week, if I'm not mistaken. And then they're not meeting in December. And then the next thing on the agenda, obviously, that's sort of ongoing, is their work on the website, the town website, which I'm definitely encouraging them to bring something to us as soon as they can. And then as far as the new Energy and Efficiency Advisory Committee, they met. Rick LeBrecq is the chair, Chris Magnus, co-chair. And they are getting right to work as we hoped. They're actually going to be meeting a couple of times a month. They'll be meeting tomorrow night to try and get moving as fast as they can with studying the Community Power Coalition, among other things, to sort of get us, some information, hopefully by February, before February, hopefully. So they're in good shape.
Excellent.
Would it be acceptable for the chairperson of subcommittees to receive a building key and an alarm code, so that a town employee or a select board member doesn't necessarily be present for those meetings if there's nothing that they need to be spoken to?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Thank you.
On economic development, I'm trying to remember if I've said this in this meeting already or not. I don't think I have. We're gonna, we discussed the potential to hold a quarterly Brentwood business breakfast.
Okay.
And did we already talk about this?
Yep.
Okay. Well, there we go. We are gonna move forward with that and look to start setting up some dates. So, and we'll talk with Andy. We haven't talked about it yet, Andy, but
Sounds good.
we're gonna try to do it at the rec if we can. So that's all I got.
Planning? How was the push with at the election day with the survey?
Oh, I think they got like 100+ responses.
I don't know, because
I saw an email
I wasn't at
that
the elections.
I believe they had been at like 150 responses, and I saw an email that they were at like 250. They'd love more. So anyone out there who hasn't done the community survey, do it. It's your chance to say like what you want to see in town. They were hoping to get as many responses as possible, but it did help.
What's the deadline again?
I think they were originally said the 15th, but then we're pushing it out like into this week. So I think the end of this week, because they did have some good response to the election handout.
Jen, you get anything?
From school board, there was a meeting, I guess, last week. They gave a good update on the superintendent search and the whole new process. All the different, including a community group, a community group, a student group, para group, teacher group, sort of a really sort of expansive way to do interviews. They felt that was going really well. And there was a committee that went in front of the joint board as a result of that, a candidate. They're also in non-public with them. We discussed a safety and security issue. So the chief was there and we discussed that in non-public, and they decided to move forward to address that issue. And then there were just some basic updates, and they're obviously working on their budget like all of us. And talking about the potential of adding a reading specialist, which would be a new position that most similar sized schools in this area have, with the exception of Newfields, which is a very small school. And there was a lot of discussion about the potential benefits of adding that position at the school. So I think those were the big updates from there.
Letty, not to put you on the spot, but you made the announcement last night. Do you want to do it again tonight?
Sure. Do you want me to make an official announcement or not? I'm speaking as a private citizen who happened to be at the joint school board.
I know there was a meeting since then.
There was a joint school board meeting. The joint school board offered the superintendent position to Dr. Esther Aswell, who's currently in the SAU office as, I think, the associate superintendent. I know that one of them's associate, one of them's assistant, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So there is no compensation decided on yet. That will be part of the negotiations.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's anyone here from the library who, I just realized the library trustees, I think, met last night. Is there any news? Anyone from the library? No?
We went over the budget, but I don't have any figures with me.
Gotcha.
Alternates, so.
Isn't there an amphitheater meeting?
Yeah, there's an amphitheater meeting on the 1st at 6, but they were gonna put together like some social posts so we could have official, info on it, but it's for the public to attend and learn about the amphitheater project and have input.
Kristen, can you say your name?
Kristen Goodrich.
Thank you.
All right, and on Thursday is the groundbreaking ceremony at the county land for the new sheriff's department's community corrections / registry of deeds / everything else building.
Andy, what time, I'm sorry, what time is that?
Noon,
Noon?
high noon at the sheriff's department. But not at the sheriff's department, across the street, in the field. I think it's gonna be in the field because it's behind where the old, if any Brentwood people know, the piggery was,
Yeah.
out over there somewhere.
The what now?
Piggery,
The new
where pigs,
Look for
where
someone,
pigs were made pigs.
look for someone
The new
with
building
huge
should smell
scissors.
better.
All right, let's go into budgets. Andy, are you alone or did you bring backup?
I got that.
As always, thanks for having me. I'm gonna sit next to you, Russ.
Did you find
Don't
the
worry, I
craft?
won't lean this way.
Did you find the craft?
Yeah.
You're gonna hold it. She's gonna.
I guess I'll start off with joint loss first, if that's okay, or do you
Sure.
wanna do rec?
Joint loss, perfect.
Joint loss, I'm
Because there
leaving,
should no argument about that.
yeah, I'm leaving
None.
joint loss level funded at $241. Does everyone have a copy of it? Do I need
Yep.
to have
Yeah.
this? Okay.
We've got it. I will make a motion to approve joint loss for 241.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Wanna do that for this one?
No.
Alright. Alright, so to dive right into the fun stuff here. So just to start from the top, and if anyone has any questions, please stop me along the way. But we'll start from the top here. So salary line at $61,080. That's an increase from 28 per hour to 29.82 per hour. In total of 6.5% increase. 5% of that is COLA, with 1.5 being merit. And reason for a bigger jump was there was a 13-week gap in the beginning of the year before that adjusted wage there. And then to keep rolling down here, FICA and retirement, those figures are just based off of that salary line. Training, we're keeping level funded. That normally covers most of my yearly conference up in North Conway in January. The electric line is one of the line items we had the biggest jump from 3,200 to 6,200, and this is just due to an increase in energy cost and built into what we expect the cost to be in 2023 after the adjusted 55 per town to 45% rec split.
Can I hold you there for a second?
Absolutely.
Is there a way that, instead of doing an increase, we can show the in and out with the solar money, like technically, yes, we have to pay it out, but we're bringing it back in revenue, so.
So all of the revenue goes into rent of town property in a revenue line, and all of the expense for the revision bill is built into the government buildings budget. So you couldn't apply that revenue towards this line.
But it basically cancels itself out.
It does.
Yeah.
Overall, it does.
To continue on, heating and
So
oil.
it just looks like he's spending
Would we ever
more money.
pull all our electric out of individual budgets? It ends up looking like individual budgets are inflated when
So
they may not be, right?
all of the budgets pay their own electricity bill. There's a separate electricity bill for, so rec has 3, cemetery, highway, fire, receives a small one, town office receives 1. And then we get a separate bill for revision for the amount of energy, for the 8 cents per kilowatt hour that they charge us.
Do we need to do that, or can we choose to put all electricity into one line item?
You could choose to put it all in one place, if that's what you wanted to do. They're itemized out now dependent on department building.
Because at the end of the day, with the solar array, how do we break out in total for electricity costs?
So we allocate about $26,000 in the government buildings budget for what we pay revision, and that is the cost that will go away once we purchase the panels.
Right, but in terms of like what we pay for total energy at the end of the year versus the income that we generate from solar, is it a wash? Like, is it zero?
No, it's not a wash.
We still have
We still have costs.
costs, okay. But not to this level, this is inflated, right? Because we have revenue that comes in that balances this out.
It will to some degree, yes.
Yeah, so it's kind of you could do it one way or the other, because that was my question to Andy, I said, maybe I'm being dumb, but every budget has electric going up, but we have a solar array, so I was a little confused in terms of like, this probably isn't real, and it sounds like it in fact is not real.
It's kind of like Kip's budget, you have to show the expense.
Right.
But he's still bringing in revenue.
Exactly.
So he's actually bringing in more money than.
Yeah, so you just sort of put an asterisk next to
But
it,
you see
right?
it in Kip's budget here, it just looks like,
No, you don't, because you don't see
Is
his.
revenue separate?
oh, yeah.
So it's the same type of thing, you just put an asterisk next to it, basically.
Okay, perfect. To stay on energy costs, heating and oil's very similar, just because of rise in funds there, that number is reflective of what 23 is gonna be, and still the same 55 town to 45% rec split. Dues and subscriptions, that takes care of my NHRPA membership, that allows me to go to quarterly luncheons, these seminars I go to, my 2 conferences a year and whatnot. I need that membership to be able to attend those. General supplies, we left level funded, normally covers office or community center program supplies. Telephone and communications was a total increase of $250 from $750 to $1,000. The landlines and fire alarm system in the community center is required by law, and we have exceeded that line item over the last few years by over $1,000. So that was our justification for raising that up to $250. Equipment and maintenance, excuse me, we kept level funded. This covers any equipment costs or repairs, snack shack fridge, the stove and the BRC, structure repairs, our irrigation system. Every time I need to call someone out to take a look at that, activate it, deactivate it. That's what we have there. Portable toilets is where you'll see the next biggest increase outside of energy. That's just, frankly, it's a total increase, and we're going from $700 to a proposal of $2,250. That is due to us, the facilities requiring a second portable toilet on the facilities due to increased foot traffic. We, since I started here, we have increased just the number of town events, rec programs, we've increased field rentals, so just overall, the foot traffic, in my opinion, is what determines why we got to here. If all the complaints I feel about our facilities this past year in particular was our toilets needed to be serviced more. Rec is going to be considering a 3rd additional toilet, but we're going to be looking at that out of the revolving fund.
Is there a way that we could increase user fees to cover some of that cost? Because the cost is due to use. So, I mean, some of the field rental prices, some of the, I mean, everything's going up. People should expect,
Yeah.
To answer that question on my side of things, I would like to increase field rental costs at that point, just because in the last year and a half, we did do a program adjustment to fees, and we did make an increase. So we don't want to go back and hit users again for just adjusting those rates. On the other hand, field rental cost for the renter has not changed in a while. So we could bring it to the board and see if we can make that adjustment in that sense.
Again, that would be an in and out, so I mean, we would just be able to show the taxpayer that, you know, granted, it's coming out of the budget, but we're bringing it back in through field rentals.
And Andy, is the reason it's going up so significantly because of the cost of a second unit and increased servicing costs?
So, yeah, it's a little bit of everything. So just in general, that 700 was a reflection of one toilet, and their costs have increased slightly, not to a degree, but the second toilet we also added a handicap stall, and that comes at a higher rate.
Gotcha.
If we do a third toilet out of the revolving fund, it's just gonna be a standard unit, but that was another reason why for that
Gotcha.
increased cost, is because it's an additional $50 a month for the handicap stall. Keep plowing through here. We have town events as a placeholder. Land maintenance is another big increase you see. Prior to 2021, it was always at 5,600. This year, we're proposing to bring it back up to 5,600. We dropped it. We decreased it 2,400 last year with the idea that was gonna help offset some of the adjusted wage costs there. And then to keep going into what that 5,600 goes into, all of that for the most part will go into our lawn doctor contract for the fertilization and weed control. And that contract itself is rounding up is 7,300. So that 5,600 alone doesn't even cover the full contract. And if you look here further down, there are other land maintenance costs that come out of our end. We get our infields rate 2 to 3 times a year. That's $700 per application per field. St. Hilaire Field is definitely in need of infield mix. Those were costs that this past year out of the revolving fund, we were able to cover at least half of that through field rentals, also with the core aeration and whatnot. But not to keep going on land maintenance itself. Again, the idea was to increase it back up to 5,600 to where it was prior to 2022 for those listed reasons. Is there any questions with land maintenance, that line item in particular? Okay. Trails, placeholder, and then land and facility improvements. We want to let everyone know here that there will, in the future, we will be looking to increase that line item. On the rec side of things, we understand that our budget is increasing a rather large amount. So our idea there is to keep that level funded for this year, just because we know costs are going up.
I'd just like to commend you on a well-explained budget.
Thank you.
The support you provided is exactly what a lot of us are looking for, and you can actually see why you're asking for what you're asking.
Well, thank you. Any questions in general? Right?
Do I have a motion
Make a motion.
for $95,040?
Yep.
95. Is that where's the number? It's right here. $95,040.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, or?
I'm gonna abstain since I came in towards the tail end. I apologize, but I was at a fire last time. I apologize if I reek like smoke, but
Motion carries 4-0-1. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
We're going to debt services. Karen?
So these are the principal and interest payments that we are expected to pay in '23. The fire station principal balance is, the total payment is $75,000. I reduced it to 50 with the intent to use $25,000 from fire impact fees to cover the remaining cost. That would still leave $20,000 remaining in their account after that was paid.
Do we know how many years, what's our next one leaving us?
The next
Library?
one's leaving is library, and that will come off in '23. And then a couple of the open space bonds are set to expire around that same time. So those will expire between '23 and '27.
So the budget is for 306,730, which is a reduction of last year from 326, 265. So $20,000, 28, some change. Bob has a motion, do I have a second?
Okay.
Jen second, any discussion? All in favor of 306,730?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Ken, is there a reason why the ones at the bottom haven't like fallen off the list? The ones that have no values associated with them?
Those are just ones that have been paid off already, and there's no way to delete them without deleting all of the history that goes with them. So
Oh,
we just
okay.
leave them as empty.
Okay. Do they come off at some point, or do we just leave them on there?
We just leave them,
Forever.
as long as you want to maintain the history of it.
Are we reopening the zoning because of the salary?
Just a tiny change.
Yeah, it's just a small change based off of the merit.
So I need the motion to reopen the planning board and ZBA budgets because they came back with different salary numbers.
Second.
Bob motioned,
Sean second.
Sean seconded. So the original salary was done at the max and the other salary is done at not the max, so it's a reduction. As soon as I find my numbers, do you know what the
Let's go, planning board budget to reduce it to $109,393.
109 what?
$393. It's a savings of about $500.
Motion for the 109, 393?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to open the ZBA budget.
That one didn't change.
Didn't change, so we don't need a motion to open it.
Withdraw the motion?
Chief Bird, come on down.
You changed out of your outfit too?
Excuse me?
You changed out of your full dress too?
Wait.
I stay in that monkey suit as short a time as possible, and I gotta climb back in it tomorrow, so. Those are not fun times usually when you're wearing it, so. I'm in to discuss the sick leave in town. As it sits right now, you have to be out 3 days or 4 consecutive days in order to be able to use the sick leave at all. The problem we've got with that is one of my guys takes a day off due to sick leave. He's using 24 hours of his earned time in order to make that work. I've done some research across the area with a couple of different well, I should say about a half a dozen towns, and what their sick policies consist of. And I can give you a couple of examples. Glasgow does 12 hours a month and pays out an unused portion at the end of the year. Kingston accumulates 8 up to 450, and once accumulated, they go back to about a 4-hour accumulation a month, but they don't have a payout. Raymond accumulates theirs at 8 hours per month to 720 hours, and I have a separation clause in their town policy that allows them, if you want to quit in June, leave in June, you're allowed to use it all up in front of that. I don't agree with that one at all, but that's the way they do it. Northampton is at 12 hours a month and it allows the employees to accumulate up to 540. And any unused sick leave at the end of the year is paid out at half of their hourly rate. Upon retirement or retirement due to a job-related injury or upon the death of the firefighter, the benefit is that sick pool that they have accumulated would be paid out at 50%. Exeter pays out, gives out 12 hours a month, 144 a year, and they can accumulate up to 1,440 hours. And after that, it's use it or lose it. They pay it out at retirement at half of that. Hampton accumulates theirs at 10, up to 1,000 hours, and the minimum that they need to carry is 400. And they use theirs to offset the town's insurance, so if you're paying out on the insurance on your part of it, they would use that to offset it, and a long-term disability, etc. That pretty much covers the thing. What I'm looking for, to at least get it started.
Can I stop you for a second,
Sure.
Chief? So, let me give you some history here. Way back in the day, we changed from vacation and sick time to earned time. So each town employee earned so many hours a week. The idea was, there's different theories on sick time and the use or abuse of it. So we changed to earned time, where an employee wanted to take the day off, they could take it off for any reason. The county had a program called Sick Pool, which I kind of morphed and brought here, that I said, we developed a town policy that if you were out for a long time, once you used 3 times of your earned day, the town would give you 40 hours to use to recover. So you didn't have to use your earned time, which was part of your sick time. So the earned time that the chief's talking about is something that's a separate benefit. It's not like the towns that he mentioned that have sick time. We combined our sick time with our vacation time and called it earned time.
These towns do continue their earned time. I don't have the scales in front of me, but they do accumulate their earned time, and they use that towards their vacations. I understand where Andy's concerns are, that, you know, you abuse it and it becomes a problem. Plastow had a gentleman that was actually doing that. He was actually turning around, and they work a 12-hour shift over there. And amazingly, he'd get sick either the first day of his shift or the last day of his shift. So they kind of put a real quick stop to that. I don't see it being a problem. What I'm trying to do is create something that benefits the guys further down the road that a lot of towns are doing. And the reason I'm saying that is if you do these things, then you start to hopefully retain employees. I'm not guaranteeing it, but it's a step in that direction. Like I said, there's varying differences on it. What I'm looking at is, let me see where I put it. 12 hours a month, 144 a year, to accumulate up to 540. This is based on a comparison, like I said, with the rest of them at the bottom. And then you can do what you would see fit with it after that gets to that point. I would be recommending kind of like paying out half of it at the end of the year. That's kind of my proposal to it.
I'm assuming our earned time policies are town-wide for all
Yes.
employees? So a change like this would be similar, I would assume?
My opinion would be, if we wanted to make a change, that we adjust the accumulation rate to the earned time.
Sure.
The sick pool was something totally different, not meant for sick time. But I know, I'm not sure how competitive our earned time earning ratio is. I mean, that's a study we would have to do.
What is it currently?
It's, for employees up to 5 years, they get 2 hours a week. For employees 5 to 15 years, they get 3 hours per week, and after 15, you get 4 hours per week. So it's
So it's
13
eight,
days. It's 13 days, 19 days, and then
which could use some adjustment, because 13 days between vacation and sick time really isn't that much
It's
time.
not at all.
26 days.
It sounds like we probably need to look at the numbers from the other towns, and because it's not apples to apples. If some towns are doing earned time and sick time, and we're doing just earned time, I think we've got to like kind of crunch the numbers a little bit.
Most places don't have earned and sick, they either have vacation and sick
You're right.
or earned.
Right.
And the sick pool was kind of like a
The
gift.
Yeah.
The idea behind the sick pool is, let's say, God forbid, you're waiting
Really
in
sick.
between for short-term disability or
Yep.
long-term disability to kick in. The way Durham has done it, they actually had a guy that was close to the end of his retirement, and because of the way the pool was set up, they actually carried him a year or two, rather than him, because he would have walked away at 66 2/3, and rather than walk away at 66 2/3, they carried him a year out of the sick pool and let him retire out, and his benefit was better on the other end. So this is kind of the idea behind these things, that you're working together and you're allowing people, God forbid something happen. I mean, we're all sitting here doing a job and we deal with sick people every day of the week, and that type of thing, that we're trying to develop something that'll help in that direction. So that's kind of the reason I proposed it. If you do nothing more in the short time, if you could do it to at least increase it to 48 for us, because it's 24, they're working 24-hour shifts. So literally, if you take a couple of days out and you use that, even though we're on a 42-hour-a-week cycle type of thing after 8 weeks, you're literally taking 24 hours out of it when you take a day. So if you did nothing more than increase ours to 48 hours as the benefit for the time being, then that would help in that respect. And if we could loosen it up, I know you want to take a look at it, if we can loosen it up somehow, because these guys, we're in a different situation, he's gonna be in a different situation, the police chief and I. I know we're trying to make one thing fit all, but at some point, one thing fitting all doesn't work, is what I'm getting at. We're kind of a different animal, we're working 24-hour shifts, we're working a rotating shift, and these are the things that are making it work for other places, and that's the reason I'm presenting it. You guys want to take a look at it, that's fine, I understand where you're coming from, but that's what I'm proposing at the moment. The other thing I'd like to see, and there again, you're asking these guys to work 24-hour shifts on the holidays. I'd like to see and it's based on a couple of different towns, and most of a couple of different towns are working this way, that rather than pay out 8 for the holiday, they would pay out 12. So you're at least getting half the day from these, and that type of thing.
So I don't want to be cynical, chief, but you asked for them to work 24 hours a day. and
I
Fire
totally
service
understand.
concludes night, weekends, and holidays.
I totally understand that, but like I said, as you go around the area, these are things that are starting to be offered up as benefits in order to keep people. And I'm not guaranteeing that you're gonna hold anybody in this small town. Some of these young kids are very good, some of these kids are go-getters, and they wanna be busier than they are here. Some of them, after they do that, are not so happy they did it, but right at the young age that these guys are coming in here, they wanna be busy and they're looking at benefit packages. I'm just being perfectly honest with you. I'm not trying to ask for anything that I don't think is unreasonable within the group.
Can you explain exactly what you meant by increasing it from 24 to 48? What specifically?
Well, the idea is if you finally get into that, you've taken 3 days or 4 days to get there, and God forbid you get something else going on. Once you start that, yours is spread out over a 5-week period. Mine, if they have to go use it, they literally have got to use 24 of it. So literally, once you get into that 40 hours, you're actually using 24 of it to cover the day off that you're on.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So if you, is what I'm getting at.
So the 3-day exclusionary period for the sick pool was waived when COVID started. So you The policy was changed to allow employees to tap into their sick pool if they were experiencing COVID-related symptoms, to alleviate the need for earned time and close that gap. So how about, if the chief is requesting to increase the sick pool hours to accommodate a 24-hour rotation, if they're out for 2 shifts in 1 week, where they would normally be compensated for 42 hours, what if you just kept them whole at the 42 hours? And then if they were to bang out for 2 separate shifts, you would allow them the 24 and 24, so they get at least 2 whole days. Does that make sense?
No.
I'm not
It's kind of
following.
confusing, the whole thing's a little confusing, I think.
Well, so if you,
I understand the 24-hour difference between a employee that works 24 hours
Versus
in 1
8.
shift versus 8. Like,
Yeah.
that's a pretty glaring difference, and I understand that. But I don't understand what
I know,
the
I know
solution.
what
You
you're
get
trying
what
to
I'm
get at. Their week is paid based on a 42-hour week. So whether they work 24 or they work the 48, on an 8-week cycle, they actually end up with a week where they only work 1 day in that week. And that's how the 8-week cycle gets based, and that's how they get paid on a 24-hour, on a 42-hour based work week. What she's suggesting is to keep them whole. So rather than worry about whether you're on a 24, you would get paid for your 42 if you took 2 days off in that week, rather than, and that would keep them whole for the 42, is what she's, I think is the direction she's trying to go
Yeah.
with it.
How do we make that work?
we just increase the amount of hours that we allow them in their sick bank. It's not an accrual, it's just a number that's dumped into their bank at the beginning of the
But,
calendar year.
but the 2 days is their week, so if they work 1 on, 3 off,
They're working 1 on, 2 off, 1 on, 4 off.
Yeah,
so, I mean, technically, they could take 2 days off and say they were sick and have
an entire week.
6 days off.
But so if they were sick 2 days in the same pay period, you'd give them just the 42. But if you put 48 in their bank, that would at least allow them to have a 24-hour shift that they were off, and then if they were to get sick again within that same season, they'd have another day that they could take off and keep them whole without tapping into their earned time bank.
I think we had just
Is
have to
that-
look at the way it's written and maybe change it to numbers instead of days or hours.
I think it would help to see it.
See something?
Yeah, it would
Yeah,
help.
it is
Me
a
too.
lot, I mean, in spirit.
No, I understand,
I'm
I
with you,
understand,
it's
I understand, it's, like I said, welcome to 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week coverage with full-time employees. And I understand that it's hard to wrap your head around, and I'm trying to explain it the best way I possibly can. Throw your 2 cents in if you want.
Well, just 2 things to think about. Our culture now, post-COVID, still encourages people to stay home when they're sick. All my guys coming in and getting the whole department sick. So, you know, it used to be, well, just tough it out, come in with a cold. No, we don't encourage that anymore. So people taking sick days more. The other thing is, you do need to wait, and I say wait a 24-hour shift, wait an 8-hour shift versus a 10-hour shift. So the way we did it in Wakefield, if I can just interject on that, is we weighted, the accrual of earn time was weighted differently depending upon your shift. So town hall employees got their straight earn time every month, we did it. Police, they were weighted at 10-hour shifts, so we got a little bit more. Because, again, like he says, even if you take an earn time day off, you're using 24 hours of earn
Right,
time.
you should get whatever your day is.
Out of the same bank that everybody. So if you weight the earn time differently, it all actually evens out. You just do a multiplier for each. And you can, you know, police and 8-hour versus 10 hours is not the big deal. It's really when you get to fire. We recognized it when we went to 24-hour coverage in Wakefield. We said, well, we gotta change this around. And so when people first saw it, they said, well, how come fire gets so much earn time every month? Well, because the way their shifts go. It's an easier shift and it's a much more common shift for firefighters to work 24 hours. And I get it that Joe asked for that, that's really kind of the norm. It's a benefit, but still, we work just something to think about. If you weight it differently, it actually all, works in the end. The only thing different that we have here that we didn't have where I was is that sick pool. We put everything into earn time. So there was no wait period where you just use your earn time, you have one whole bank. And I don't know if that works for Joe and his folks. It would certainly work for police. It's just one big bank.
That's what my company
And you
does,
can use it
whether
for either
it's anything,
sick
yeah.
time, you can use it for a mental health day if you need a mental health day, or you can use it for an actual vacation. One, and you can incorporate, so let's say what do we get every year now, 5 days, sick days?
5.
Well, you don't actually get them.
Don't actually get it.
You don't actually get them, there's a pool of unlimited.
Right, that's what I mean, but you could, it's a benefit that, you don't get them until you need them, right?
But there's not 5, you have, like, if
You accrue.
in March you were sick, and then in September you were sick, you would get it again, and
No, the policy says you get 40 hours a year. Or
That's it?
at the end of the
It's
year,
capped.
you can take some of the earned time that you would potentially lose, because it's use it or lose it, and you can roll it into your sick bank to carry into the next year. But a lot of people traditionally don't do that.
Yeah, see, my company allows me to have, I get 20 a year, and then it accrues
You and I need to sit.
year after year until I cap out at 240, and then it just stays at 240. If I don't use it, then no big deal, but if I get sick and I use it and it drops, let's say down to 200, then the next year when I get the next amount, it would actually go right back up and it would cap out again at 240.
Like I said, I'm trying to keep this basic, really am, because if you really get into these bigger departments, they've got a sick bank on top of that they carry. So these guys are literally accumulating whatever you decide they get for hours, plus there's a sick bank on that they base a formula on after you get to a certain point of your own accumulation, and they steal an hour or two from you in order to put it into the sick bank that everybody in general can use, and then depending on how low it drops, depends on how they get it back. Durham right now literally beats up on the 5 guys at the bottom. They steal it from the new guys coming in and refill the sick pool that way. So you could read 496 different contracts in the state. I just tried to pull something that was close. All I'm trying to do is, like I said, try to get us in the area of where everybody else is operating. But I had a guy already take 24 hours out of his earned time in order to take a day off.
No, that makes
I'm
sense.
just trying,
That totally
I'm just trying
makes
to
sense.
figure out a way to make that work and make it somewhat fair to them. I understand we're working that, I brought it in, but like the chief said, we're going in that direction that 24 is basically the way things are based. And it'll come along a lot further, I'm just trying to get a step ahead of it to begin with.
So
Hence the reason I'm doing the 12 hours for the holidays, that there's already 3 towns that I know of that are doing it. One of the bigger ones is not, they haven't brought that up, but at some point that'll be an issue back with them. And we're working 24, we're trying to cover 12, and that's all I'm asking for, a holiday. I mean, granted, we signed up to do this, or they signed up to do this, but, time away from your family is important in both directions too.
can we just look at it, what it looks like on paper next week?
Pull the policies. Chief, I think this board is like universally in favor of fair market wages for
Yeah.
all of our employees, so I think we hear you 100%. We just gotta figure out, maybe between the chiefs and Karen, we can kind of try to put something together and reassess.
Instead of having different, like, police having 10-hour days, fire having 12-hour days, town hall having 8, I would be more entailed to anybody working the holiday gets paid time and a half, and anybody that's not working the holiday gets an 8-hour paid day off. So whatever firefighter's working that day, if they have to work a holiday, they get paid time and a half for 24 hours. You wanna
It's another option.
You want a reason to come in on a holiday? I'm gonna give you time and a half.
I agree with that.
And
Take a
then
look at that.
I'd actually like to see, I don't know how we do it now, but all holidays just paid out either at the 6-month mark and then the year mark, or?
Well, ours is sitting that way right now.
Police and fire.
The fire is sitting
So-
at the end of the year, it's
But-
paid out as a one lump check, which is, to me, nice at Christmas time.
Yeah.
And I don't have any squawks out of the guys about that one, you know, so.
Should we
I think
read-
that's easier, but we could put a whole proposal together of costs and.
Yeah, because we have to do the cost analysis.
Should we rediscuss next week or in
Let's say
Couple
2
weeks?
This is
Oh,
probably a
2
couple weeks, we
Yeah,
need to
couple
get through
weeks.
budgets
That's a lot of
and,
a couple weeks?
Next week is Thanksgiving too, so
Oh, yeah, true.
this is probably more of a January 1 conversation.
I'm getting feedback too. Are you guys
Probably.
getting that?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Maybe. Your mic may be too close to my mic. That and there's nobody left in the
So-
room, so.
Yeah. I just looked around.
I guess my question is where do we stand with the holidays? Can I, or are we gonna just do that? We're gonna do that, okay, so I'm trying to budget my budget to come in here with the true budget to you guys, so I'm trying to figure out where we stand, okay? Can we do the 48 without breaking anybody's heart?
We need to get.
We need to
numbers before-
readjust the sick time policy and earned time policy.
That's gotta make sense across the whole town.
Okay,
It's not something we can
Technically,
do.
that's really not out of your budget, you just have to figure for overtime.
wait a minute. Whose page am I on?
Well, it does come out, it does hit his budget because the 40 hours comes out of his payroll line.
So it does come out of my budget.
Mm-hmm.
But you're paying them one way or the other?
Yeah, but I still gotta.
I'm
pay for
charging
the
you,
bill.
yes.
Okay, all right. One more that I know I'm gonna get my tail beat on, but I've got a couple of proposals here. I'm gonna have some money left over in my budget, a little more than anticipated, but there again, part of that is I didn't get my people when I was supposed to get my people, which affected holidays, vacations, and other things that didn't. As you know, I've got a brand-new ambulance on order, which is coming with a power load system in it. Power load system basically consists of a stretcher that you literally pull out, push the button, the wheels drop, they release, and you can wheel the stretcher away. It makes it a one-person operation. You do the same thing putting it back. You lock it into the horns, you hit the button, the wheels come up, you push, it rolls in. What we're trying to do, the society, and I'm not picking on anybody in particular, I've been sitting there and floating back and forth with weight, is getting to be larger. We're trying to protect backs, loading and unloading patients. What I'm proposing, and I've got the money figured out left in my budget, that I'd like to put a power load in ambulance 1. Ambulance 2 will be the one that's being replaced. Ambulance 1, I'd like to get one in it now where the money is sitting there and have that, and that way when the next one comes, they're both set up and ready to go, and I'm not chasing anything afterwards. The proposals you got in front of you, Sugarloaf is the bottom line, which is the 56,695. If you take a look at the striker one, before you look at everything underneath, you want to take a look at line 2, which is the NTS power load, includes the flat plate and the installation, the stuff, and then the stretcher itself, believe it or not, with a stretcher, is another $24,000. So the load itself is $26,492. The stretcher itself is $24,227.64 for a total of $50,657.19. He's cheaper. Once you start adding, and I went back and checked with Sugarloaf, adding in the warranties or the guarantees, which would go out 7 years on both. So literally, you could just about kill it and they will replace it. I've done it with a stretcher. I actually loading one by hand myself, hooked it on the back bumper and twisted the frame on it. We had the warranty on or the coverage on the stretcher, and they came in and replaced the bottom half of the stretcher free of charge. Sitting at the end of it, he does not include his installation in it. It would, believe it or not, go to Sugarloaf to be installed, but it would be another $2,000. So with the warranties all in, it's $66,331.56.
That's through Stryker or?
That's
Sugarloaf?
through Stryker.
What did Sugarloaf give you if they added the warranty?
They had the same prices you got because they call Stryker and get their prices out of Stryker for the insurance, for the warranty. I'm dead serious. I called him today and asked. And I said, so what's the price? And he says, well, it would be such and such. And then I looked at the quote and then I went, okay. They literally, I didn't ask him for separate. I'm just saying they literally told me what Stryker's would be.
How long is ambulance one gonna last?
Ambulance one, they're on 8-year cycles. We're in 6. Well, I dropped, yes, we're in about, let's see, 2006, 2014, we're at what,
22.
22, so you're about 8 years into it. The idea is run it 8 years up front, 8 years in the back line. So it'd be the second duennas. It's not going anywhere. So literally it would swap from the front to the back. As busy as we're getting, I am trying right now.
We're gonna have it for another 8 years.
You're gonna have it for another 8 years. You're gonna own it for another 8
So
years.
you're 16 years basically.
Yeah, 16 and gone. They're on 8-year cycles.
And we have impact fees, but 20,000 is gonna be what's left? Because this would be something new that we'd be able to utilize the impact fees for.
But if you wanna use. your
He
fund
wants to
balance,
use
right?
That's
budget,
just budget.
he wants to use budget overage.
Is the budget excess because of unpaid personnel costs mostly?
Most of it is. To be honest with you, when we did this, and I think the start date, if I remember correctly, was the 1st of June after town meeting, somewhere in that neighborhood. I started one guy 2 months later. I started the other guy 4 months later. There's some other costs that are built in there that are coming back. My budget, when we sit down and discuss that, there'll be some discussions over some lines that are because of adjustments, and because of payroll adjustments, and now you're actually getting what you're paying these guys. We figured heavy, hoping to get paramedics and hoping to get advanced EMTs, and we basically started the EMT level, and we didn't get the paramedics. So there's gonna be some adjustments in those lines to make it work out. But right now, this is kind of what I'm hoping. It takes, the reason I'm asking now, to get a power load is 8 to 10 weeks. It's a little quicker for the stretcher itself. But if I wait the 8 to 10 weeks, now you're looking at encumbering, you're probably gonna end up encumbering the money anyway, but at least I'm not 4 months into the year before I get the fund.
So with about 6 weeks left, the fire department still has 29% left in it, or $239,000.
But if we use impact fees of $20,000 and then we use the rest, encumber the rest out of the fire department budget, we turn more back into the general fund, which basically
Yep.
is more of a benefit.
But then you won't have the 25,000 next year to pay down the bond.
Oh, was that the intention, was to hold that 20?
We won't have $25,000 worth.
Depends on what developments get approved. How much do we get per site?
I think fire gets $904.
Yeah. How many years are left on the bond?
The fire station bond?
Oh, it's 10 in it?
10.
Yeah, I think we got 10 years left.
So it was just gonna cover one more year?
Well, it
Out of
depends on the
impact fees.
revenue and impact fees,
Yeah.
whatever is in there, and then we try to keep about 10, just in case the project comes up, and then spend the rest.
If we don't spend this, does it go back to general fund?
Offset taxes.
So it would go towards the 2023 tax rate, when you would have your unassigned fund balance, that's where you would see that. And those are the funds that you would use to potentially buy down your rate.
And the other ambulance that is on order is already getting the power loader.
The other one that's on order, I talked to the gentleman this morning, we're getting closer to actually doing final drawings on it, because the drawings he sent me, right, they're looking at probably the end of February, 1st of March before you even start it. And then you're looking at 5 months after that, so you're looking at June or July before you even see the new one.
But it has a power loader.
It will have a power load, it's already spec'd into it.
And that was a warrant article, correct, for that ambulance?
No, it's
No.
coming
No,
out
was
of,
it just in the budget?
it comes out of
It's
the
just in the,
ambulance
Well,
fees.
I couldn't
Hence
remember.
the reason that I pulled a lot of things out of the budget last year and put it into mine, because we sat there and we looked at the number and the revenue coming in order to keep that going and have that thing never be an issue, was getting shorter. I mean, our ambulance calls are increasing, but it's not increasing at the same rate that we're looking to, at the prices of ambulances. And to be honest with you right now, if they'd had their way, they would have had a contract written that subject to increases. Most of the contracts that are coming out now, good luck bidding a truck. Good luck.
So this
good
is an
luck
employee safety issue, I mean, you just,
It makes sense, yeah.
picking up patients is no fun for anybody. You know,
I would recommend getting a warranty, that's me.
yeah, I would too.
Well, yeah, like I said, that extends it out 7 years is what the extension on the warranty is. That's kind of the reason I went that way.
I see
I-
John itching to make a motion.
Like I said,
And you can cover the full 66,000
That'd be the motion
out
you
of
want.
yes,
your current budget.
yeah.
So so this is for, the ambulance is got 2 years on it, is that what we?
8.
No, it's got
8
8
years
years
on
on it.
No, I'm sorry, left,
Yes,
before it goes to the.
Right.
Ambulance heaven.
And then the new one's coming in, you said, what, chief?
probably
Next year.
June or July of next year. So
And
this to me
is
right
that-
now, is a back saver type of thing. It
Right.
is a safety type of thing.
That part is easy for me to understand. I guess the warranty was just the second part. If we're talking about from now until June, when the current ambulance goes to the back burner, you know,
Yep.
whether or not that was worth entertaining, whether or not.
I am trying to run them both at this time. It gets a little questionable. Mine was back down again to A2, which is the one that's going, was back down to McFarland today. We've got an overheating problem. We haven't figured out what it is
Okay.
yet. They did a compression test on it. They can't find anything. It's not the thermostat. They're now telling me, welcome to electronics, because it's an electric fan, that it may be the regulator for the electric fan. But I also gotta call him back and say that that truck is set up because it's diesel. The minute you set the parking brake, the IPMs come up on that truck in order to keep it fully charged. And if anybody is familiar with a diesel, if you don't crank the hell out of it, you don't get any heat. So you're trying to keep the back section of the truck warm. So I gotta call them again tomorrow and just relay that to them, because I didn't have that information when it was down there.
I think that answers my question, in that I thought I was understanding you to say, like, once it goes to the backup,
No,
you don't use it, it's just,
No,
but you're
They're
saying.
they're running now. My policy is right now, because I'm trying to keep mileage off the newer one. My policy has been trying to swap them for a month at a time and do it 1 month on is the front one, because we run the majority of calls during the day. That may change a little bit once we get this in here, because I do not want to come back to you and say, hey, by the way, somebody screwed their backup because they were running the other one. I might run it a week or two at a time and do something different. It's not good for anything to sit. You just develop problems with it sitting to begin with. So, yeah, you would be running it. My call volume's up almost 70 or 80 calls a month this year, for the year. There's 70 or 80 calls this year already. Looking, I think I come in at 891 last year or something, neighborhood, and looking at 40 or 950 for this year. So the call volume is just continuing to grow. The town, you're gonna use more and more and go that way with an ambulance, so.
I'll do that.
And
Alright.
Chief, is this lift of standard, like, standard of care in the community?
Most every, Epping's got 3 different ambulances, got 3 of them on them. I think Kingston's got 2 and they got 2 in. It's industry standard. It saves backs, it just does. You know, the days, Andy can tell you, you used to grab each side of it and the two of you would throw it in because you had to pick it up off the ground type of thing, or you know, and then they come a long way with this stuff, and you used to have to let the wheel drop, and, yeah, I can show you one of the old ones someday if you wanna come over and take a look.
Okay. Want a motion
Love a motion.
to approve, we're going with,
I think everybody would recommend getting the warranty, but
okay.
Whatever
yeah,
you wanna
I'm
make the
convinced
motion.
on that, yes. So it's this one here?
66,
66.
66, 331, 56. Make a motion. To
do I have a second?
We've just spent so much money this year, like the cost of everything is going up, and we've been dealing with this for 8 years. We're getting a new one in a few months. I totally get that it is not unpleasant to do this, but I mean, we've been doing it and we are fixing the problem. So I just based on where we are at with the spending, I think I'm just gonna have to be a no on this, to be honest with you.
I'd be more comfortable using impact dollars. Yeah, I know we're trying to save those for next year's, but I'd love to have this go. I'd love to see more money go back into the funds next year instead of appropriating and using what hasn't been spent. I think if we took $20,000 that we have in that impact fees and then use the rest out of whatever's left over for encumbrance, I'd be more comfortable with that. That's me.
It's a wash either way though, right? Because if we use impact fees, then we're just gonna have to raise an extra $25,000 to pay the bond.
Yes.
So it's a
Yeah.
total wash
We
monetarily
would
for the
raise
taxpayer.
We would raise what we agreed for on the bond, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's a zero-sum game, I think.
Yeah.
I agree, it's a lot of money.
Yeah,
Like,
what I'm-
it sounds to
Oh,
me
they're
like it
not-
makes sense.
They're not cheap.
Yeah.
Anything to do with an ambulance isn't getting
I
any
get
cheaper.
it.
We're looking, just to give you an idea, an average engine right now, just a basic engine is $800,000, just for an engine.
Wow.
That's not, now you're talking, you put a ladder on the thing, or something like that, you're at $1.5 million or better for a truck. So the stuff is not getting any cheaper.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second it. I think if we, the voters are in favor of getting a new ambulance that has this technology, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that we would have another one that doesn't have this technology if it's kind of industry standard. It is a lot of money, but the fact that we can cover it out of the budget seems like, to me, reasonable, so I will second that.
Just want to add too, that from everything I'm understanding is that both, you'll still be using this vehicle.
Yes.
I still use both of them now, to
So,
be honest with you.
so it's, to me, it's, if it makes sense to have it, for the health of, our town employees and it's become the standard, makes sense to me.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 3-2.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Kip, were you here just because you like to see our beautiful faces, or, oh yeah, you want to talk about county building permits?
Oh, God. I thought they didn't have to do it.
We're gonna find out, I guess.
Okay, Kip. So you want me up?
Come on down.
Good evening.
Hi.
So, basically, I guess my question was to the board, as much as anything. The RSAs point to the fact that if a municipality has zoning and uses 674-51 to have a code enforcement building inspector, they're obligated to permit any and all buildings except for state facilities and university and community college systems, which the state would permit. Other than that, you're required to permit, and part of the permitting process that we've set up, it has a fee schedule. So, you got a project coming up, it's a county project. I want to know what the board wishes me to do.
Follow
I
the
have
law.
nothing-
Follow the law.
Yeah. If it says they have to get a permit, they have to get a permit.
I have checked with another county.
Does the county seem aware that this is going to be required of them, or will this come as a surprise to them?
Well,
Hopefully they know the law,
They haven't pulled a permit yet for any
They haven't.
construction they've
they
done.
have not approached,
so maybe they are not aware of this law.
they have not approached this office as of yet, this department. However, all the people bidding on the job that, have called and were given the fact that, what the fee schedule was and the fact that, there's a permit required.
Can we invite the director of facilities to our next meeting? That seems a reasonable place to start.
I mean, if it's a state law, how much discussion is required?
Sounds good.
Unless we want to just have
Can we
Kip.
just send them a letter and say, because they're doing a groundbreaking, right?
Yep.
So,
We haven't, nobody's applied for a permit and gotten a permit approved, so
maybe they
should be
should
doing that.
be getting a letter since they're holding a public ground.
Do we want to send it to
In 2 days.
facilities, or do we want to send it to the county commissioners?
both.
Yes.
How about I speak with Jude first?
Okay.
I don't know, I kinda like the county commissioner's idea.
Get both of them. I want my money.
Can, after you speak with that person, can we,
We can follow up with a letter.
Follow up
and
with a
CC the
letter?
Commissioners,
So
if appropriate?
if appropriate.
Jude is the director of facilities. So,
Okay.
For the county.
yes.
All right, seems like a good path.
I mean, we're gonna be, if the building's in our town and we need to make sure it's being built to code and we need to make sure the fire department's going out there and doing all the stuff that we have laws set up for, I don't want them missing something and then something happens and then they're gonna come back and look at us and say, why
I think
wasn't
we're all in
it done?"
agreement, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Alright,
gonna
do you-
overtalk it.
Do we need a motion, or do we
I have
just
2 more
do it?
questions.
Oh.
I have something else as well.
So the level of time that this will take for KIP is far more extensive than any other building permit that would be issued. This will involve weekly meetings, site inspections. So what sort of fee do you want to impose?
I mean,
Because your
our
regular
fee schedule really should
Include-
reflect
Just go on
his,
square
the,
footage?
the time, the additional complications will take, like, we should have that somehow built in.
Okay, so if I can interject a little in this. Actually, all I've got is some hearsay on how big the building is and so on and so forth. But it seems to me the building's big enough. Does anybody remember?
It's huge.
It's,
Yeah,
it's big.
massive. It's called the Rock.
So, anyway, at the time, what I was hearing, I think the square footage and the fees, came out like a $40,000 fee. So, the project timeline is, again, probably a 3-year timeframe, roughly, plus or minus. Given the fact that the last project that I visited there was the nursing home and a renovation, and it took up, depending, but it probably averaged between 8 and 10 hours a week, between fielding questions with the architects, doing the meetings and inspections. So if you sat down there and weighed that out, you're spending $9 to $10 grand a year in time. Out of those fees, I would write into the permitting process that out of those fees that would be collected, and I don't know how we do this financially, but, because I can't really budget for it, but there'd be third-party inspections on occasion. The select board can also solicit the state to have state inspectors chime in or get technical reasoning from them as needed. And so all those costs will be covered by the permit. We don't have anything set up that way exactly, but
Well, while you're on that subject, you're not gonna sprinkler system, you got an extensive fire system going in that building.
So you're gonna have
I'm
your
a
own permits.
part-time guy.
So am I to understand that this massive building that's about to be built is currently permitless?
Correct.
And the people in charge of the project have not identified this as a problem? Like, it's almost a little head scratcher here. Like, if the state is not permitting them and they haven't asked us for a permit, how are they planning to build this gigantic building with no permits? That's, I feel like I'm like missing something.
Possibly in the past, it was done differently, I don't know. But this is how the law reads, and this is what I understand how it works.
So that's the size of the building. It looks like
It's
about the
huge.
size of the courthouse with 2 jail wings on it,
It's huge.
2-story structure.
Is this amount of work even doable for you with your current,
Given the
work?
things that I just mentioned.
if you outsource some of it?
Right, and the RSA's and the laws also allow certain things to be done and verified by a design engineer. For example, accessibility, you know, that took an architect, you know, a better part of a year to design all that. But they also get to be certified to approve it. Because to do a whole plan set, that
Right.
size,
Right.
you gotta give me months to review it. Fortunately, most of this, I'm sure, is been stamp certified by engineering firms. Similar to what I did at the nursing home, where I had the engineering company sign off on the work that they said needed to be done, that it was done.
Did the nursing
So-
home pay for permit fees?
It was not requested.
So I don't know why, like, this doesn't really seem to be a select board issue, like, the county should pay for the permits. I think, like, Kip, you should be leading the charge for that, and, you know, we'll back you up, but like, the county needs to follow the law, and that's it. And they
I
need
just
to,
want to know that
they need to
that's
pay
what the
their
board
way.
wanted, you're my boss, so.
they need to pay their way, like,
And they
the
need to pay
town,
appropriately.
the town of Brentwood shouldn't be footing the bill.
Because we don't get taxes for
Anything.
any of that, so this is how we.
Yeah, they have to
make
cover
revenue to cover
100% of the
for you
cost.
Doing all that stuff, so.
There we have it. So, if you want me to, I'll be the one that sends out the request for information.
Sounds good. Oh, Karen said
Do
she
you
was
wanna
gonna-
talk to Jude first, and then the two of you can coordinate?
That's fine.
Did you have another question, or did we good?
No, that was it. My other question, Kip asked.
Awesome,
Thanks, Kip.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Now I know where I'm going.
Good night.
Remote work. I asked remote work to be put on the schedule. Bob had brought in the benefit back when gas prices were $4 or $5 a gallon. We're trending back down, so I kind of think we need to review whether having employees work remote is.
You going Elon Musk on us?
No, but I agree with some of the noise that most of the town government needs to be accessible to.
I'm giving you a
To
hard
town
time, but I
peoples.
agree with you.
agree.
Yeah,
There are occasions like minutes being done in a nice quiet spot. I still have no problem with if that's done from home. You know, some of Karen's work can be done from home, but I don't think it should be a norm that one day you're at home anymore.
I agree.
agree.
I guess my question would be, is the same amount of work being done? Are any department heads feeling that there is a lack of productivity with at-home work? Because that's the real question to me. It's not like, do you have to physically be in the building? It's, are you doing your job at 100% productivity? To me, that matters, because the way you explained it before is that when we made these decisions, it changed no hours, no access to any department in town. So if it's not an access issue, then, man, maybe I'm the outlier here, but I don't need somebody to have a butt in their chair if they're getting their work done exactly the same as if they're in person. That's my feeling. So I'm
I just-
curious if there's been any
As-
issues.
As a remote employee myself, like, I totally understand, like, I get that, but as a resident of the town, I almost kind of have an expectation if I can come to the town office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and generally meet with whomever I need to meet with, from the town.
It's an in-person service industry, basically, for the town to come in. It's not a.
So I guess that's my question. Have we had those issues since people have been remote?
I haven't had any productivity issues, nor have I received complaints.
Like, has
from
somebody
people not
come
being
into
able
the
to
building
access.
wanting to meet with a certain person that has not been present? Has
I
that been
mean,
a
on
common
occasion,
thing?
someone has come in and requested to meet with someone on their remote day, and then we say they're remote and leave a message, and we have that person contact them back. So there's always that follow through. I think the most noise I've heard about it has just been the last couple of select board meetings where we've heard those comments there.
So I can see both arguments, I really can, but I'd hate to say, oh, everybody has, like, to Elon Musk it, and just be like, you have to come back because I say so. I think we need to make sure why we're doing it, and what the pros and cons are for both our employees and the town.
I think when we set it up, it was a temporary thing.
Sure.
I don't think it was a permanent thing, so I think at some point it does have to come to an end. I'm fine with either transitioning back and say we want everyone back by the beginning of the year. That's basically how I would like to see it. Like, all right, well, maybe we're doing it every week now, you're gonna do it every other week, and then we're gonna transition where, beginning of the year, everyone should be back to work normal as normal.
What is it now?
The remote day?
Yeah, what's the policy now?
So those that are allowed to, so recreation building, finance, myself, are staggering our remote days, and the administrative assistant to the chief. They're staggering our remote days. So Tim is remote on Wednesdays to do minutes, Kip and Andy take Mondays, and I sometimes take Thursdays depending on how the week looks. So we've been able to stagger them so that it doesn't affect office hours. The only ones that are, Kip's posted office hours are Tuesdays and Thursdays anyhow, so that's why Monday makes sense for him to be a remote day. The only one that affects their technical open hours is Andy's office. He's a one-man department. There's no one to backfill. So on those days, we sort of all just keep an ear out and direct those folks to reach out to him via email instead.
So it's one day a week that people pick.
Yeah.
I guess I just think about in my profession that we have moved towards allowing more and more remote triage nurses for retention and for hiring. And so I know that we started this because of gas prices, but I guess that's my bigger question is what's the retention, what's the hiring, what's the public optics? Like if we balance all of those things, I want to just understand 100% why we would have everybody come back and if we really need to do that, or if we feel it is a major retention issue or a hiring issue. And if we don't, if we think it was purely, gas prices that people, were appreciating, then that's one thing. But I think it's, in 2022, a lot more people work remote than a couple of years ago, and it's not just because of gas prices.
There's one employee in particular that this would be a retention issue for, potentially.
So, just so I'm understanding the structure of it, it's people that report to you?
So it's basically any people in the town office building, so it doesn't affect town clerks because they have to be present to service
Right.
their customers, they can't do it remotely.
Right.
Planning, they were a newer employee and they live in town, so
But it's
I felt comfortable.
But it's generally speaking, you're
Yeah.
managing it, and you haven't received complaints, and you haven't had any issues with the way it's been, with one day per.
The complaints that I have heard is that when you're on a remote day, you're not really working. And
No,
therefore.
I'm talking about complaints that she's heard.
Well, aren't those the ones you've heard too?
That is the
Oh,
general comments.
you've
From
heard
the
complaints
community.
about the town?
People have said it at, at these meetings, that
Oh.
they don't like that some of our employees are allowed to work remote because they feel that it's not a good old-fashioned 40-hour work week. And people have actually asked Karen, when someone knows on a remote day, or is that their day off? And Karen's like, no, they're working. So, you know, I don't,
But
like I
they're
say,
accessible.
the world is a little
No.
different now.
They're not accessible?
Not to the public.
They're just doing.
They're
paperwork.
Not to the
accessible.
So
public.
the standard is that they have to be accessible 8 to 4,
Yeah.
so during their standard
Yeah.
day. If they need to make calls, like I return phone calls via voicemail, I don't have a town issued phone. So if
Yeah.
I'm gonna call the public back, I'm gonna
Yeah.
push *67, I'm gonna block my number and I'm gonna call them back.
Yeah.
If their number doesn't receive private numbers, then I forward their voicemail message to Tamara, who's in the office, and I say, if they call you back and say I didn't call them, this is why I don't call them when I'm in the office tomorrow.
Yeah.
So either
So
way,
they
they're
are
still getting a
accessible.
call within 24 hours and via
But-
email all day.
They're accessible, but if you call, you're leaving a voicemail, and then you're waiting for a call back.
Yeah.
But my question is this was done as a gas price thing.
Yep.
We should rescind the gas price thing, and if we want to add it as a benefit, then we need to talk about added benefits.
What were you gonna say, Tim?
Sure, yeah.
I was
I
going
mean,
to say, if I'm in the office, there are times that even sitting at my desk, I still can't answer the phone. If I'm in the middle of payroll or if I have someone at the
Sure.
window, they're still going to voicemail and
Right.
they're going to get a response just as, at the same speed, whether I'm sitting at my desk at home or
Right.
sitting here in the office.
Right.
I see your point. I mean, to me, that seems like kind of, you know, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But yes, the gas prices have come down, so I get it. And I'm not trying to like slide something in. I'm just saying, we tried it because of gas prices, and to my opinion, it has worked well. So I would hate to undo it just for the gas price reason without considering the ways in which it has worked well and whether the pros and cons, you know, weigh one way or the other for our employees.
You know, I'm comfortable with, you know, going forward with a, you know, 6-month period or something like that where we, you know if there've been complaints, because someone wasn't responsive, and we can reassess, or 3 months, whatever. But, I don't have a particular issue with it if people are still accessible. I mean, it's 1 day a week. But that's-
Chief?
Well, we're always looking for ways to retain good people. And we invest in them well, and we do all that kind of stuff. And we always try to set, I think all the department heads are on board with trying to set Brentwood apart from other employers so that we keep good people. So I always look for those intangibles that I can offer that don't cost me money. And this is a perfect example. This doesn't cost the town anything. And it boosts morale. And I have an employee that takes advantage of it. And she's very accessible to me whenever I need her. The fact of the matter is that there could be any one time somebody comes in here to talk to Tamara or Karen or anybody. They might just be in the bathroom. And they might have to leave a message or call back. But the important thing is that they are accessible and they are productive. And it doesn't cost the town anything to allow this to continue. It's just my 2 cents.
So if your admin's on a day off and somebody calls, do they get her voicemail or do they get the sheriff's department?
That goes to the sheriff's department, yep, and then we get the phone call and we answer it. Sometimes it rings through and I quite have to figure out that, and I'll answer it. So there's always somebody accessible for the police.
But not necessarily your admin.
Correct. But if I have an administrative duty I need done, I call her up and I say, you
Right.
need to get this done, and it's done. So, but like I said, it's an intangible that.
It's a benefit.
It is a benefit and it doesn't cost us anything. If productivity stays where it has. My 2 cents.
So you just need it modified to become a benefit, basically.
Well, yeah, we either need to vote to end it or vote to continue it as a benefit.
Have any of your managers expressed to you that it is not working for them and they would like to go back to full in-person for their departments?
I don't think she has any the only one would be rec. Everybody else besides PD is working a full week. It's just Karen's office and rec and PD.
Because some people it just won't work, right?
Right.
So we
Yeah, it's
only-
kind of hard to do highway from home.
Exactly. We only offered it to people that it was feasible.
And we transitioned highway to
You can
4
do that from
tenths.
home.
Yeah, right? You can sand
You
and
can lean on a
plow.
shovel.
You plow from
If
home.
anybody can figure it out, we would do it.
Yeah,
So-
highway,
so-
we transitioned because.
To 410s.
So I agree with Chief, and that's the way I'm thinking of it, is that we started it for one reason, it worked surprisingly well, and I get that there's some noise out there, but I don't think that that's really accurate in terms of if they're productive, if the town is still functioning, if things are still working. I would be in favor of extending it, especially as we're going into the winter. And if you want to do 6 months or something as a trial, or next year, we could always reassess it. But, you know, I kind of feel like a lot of people work remote these
I'll
days.
make a motion to change it from the gas to a benefit and to be reevaluated if it becomes problematic.
Sure. Do you want to put a time frame on it, or just open-ended?
I'd leave it open-ended at this point.
Kind of technically it has to be open-ended because
It's a benefit.
in March, the new Board of Selectmen could.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think it should be added to the policies and procedures as
A benefit.
a benefit, if that's gonna be the motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Opposed. This is a weird night for me.
John's being
So the
Elon
motion's
Musk.
gonna carry 4-1.
The only other stipulation that I put on remote staff is that they can't rotate their day. Like, whatever day is chosen is that is their
Makes sense.
day. And if they have an obligation that requires them to be in the office on that day, then they lose their remote day that week.
I think the policy and procedures should read remote day assigned by their department head.
Yep, at the
At
discretion
the
of.
discretion of their department head by needs of the department
Yep.
or something to that.
Yep, agree.
Highway vehicles?
Did you bring a letter opener? Or do we not have, they're not sealed?
The Craigslist, like, this is the best I can do, okay?
They're printed.
These are in order from highest to lowest.
All right, so
There's a whole lot more, but some of them were like $100, or I'll trade you a welder.
we have,
I didn't bring those.
I'll trade you a welder.
I'll give you a big one.
Welder.
so we have 4 bids for the 2005 Ford F-50. First one is for $11,250. Second one is for $10,000. Third one is for $8,657.12. And the last one is for $7,500.
Pick number one.
Motion for 11,250.
And permission to go to number 2 if they decline?
Yes.
Yes,
I'll
so
second that.
there's a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. That's a long agenda.
Well, you guys wanted everything listed. I listened.
Russ, you got anything?
Let me think. No.
John?
I do not.
No, I'm still on the European schedule, so I'm tired.
Jen?
No, I'm good.
It's like 2 in the
I'm
morning.
good. Chief Ventura had something?
I just want to give you guys an update on the school repeater system of the VBA. The school board graciously voted to fund the entire project.
Nice.
The purchase order was sent to me by email today, I think Karen got a copy of that. And they've already acknowledged receipt of it, so we're well on our way to making that happen.
Awesome.
There's still gonna be a delay in equipment shipping and so, but the process that we're in control of at this point is really in two ways hands. And I can tell you, in speaking with Rusty, he said, whatever you guys in your town did between my nagging phone calls and your letter that you guys will sign up on, he said, this was the quickest turnaround I've ever seen on one of these systems.
What's the procurement period for getting the equipment in, do you know?
The last time we ordered a radio was a year to get it.
It won't be
So-
long. The way they described it is that it'll be in 2 portions. Is if they can get a lot of the if they can get a lot of the software up front and the electronics will come in afterwards, and it's just a matter of connecting everything at that point. They're still estimating 4 to 6 months. But it's-
Did you guys do this in non-public?
we had a discussion in non-public and then voted in public to appropriate or expend the funds.
I went in.
This is the update I gave earlier.
Yeah, I just,
I went in
I
non-public
think
and described the issue.
less is more.
Less details is probably better.
Right, that's what I'm saying, I went in non-public and gave them
The scheme.
details, but
We're good. Thank you for taking care of it.
Well, the questions come from the board about timeline, so Chief is trying to address it, so.
No, I know.
so 4 to 6 months is the best timeline. If it's- And again, we got also, we got a big voice from the town, so I think we're probably right at the top.
Well, Chief, thanks for your persistence
Thank you.
on this. Karen, thank you.
Kendra wrote
Thanks
the
to the
letter.
school board. Appreciate, who?
Kendra wrote the letter.
There we go.
Oh, go
Thanks,
Kendra.
Any public comments? Jack?
Jack Mitchell, Sherman Avenue. On the subject of employee satisfaction, a few weeks ago, Becky Dunham suggested an employee compensation report, and that she was familiar with. I also am familiar with it. It can be helpful for the employer and the employee, particularly when the compensation is heavily weighted towards benefits. And it puts a dollar value on the benefits, and if an employee is looking around at other numbers, that kind of report can be informative to them, actually. So I have samples that we both have worked with. I can leave with you if you want to consider that approach. And it can be done at review time annually.
I'm all for that, I mean.
Gee, I think it's something
I think we were all generally in favor of moving that direction.
good to go out with open enrollment. Would be the best time to.
That's when
So-
I get mine, yeah.
Jack, were you all set?
I'm all set, yep.
Letty?
Speaking as a private citizen, I was a representative of the board I'm on, I was on the road. I was wondering if we could, in the town report, get a list of who applied under regional associations and what they were given.
I think that's,
Sure, I think we,
is it that?
I'll get,
Sure, no, I.
so one
I know.
one suggestion that came to mind was actually having the Regional Association Committee have our department report, kind of like PD, fire, whatever.
Yep.
And then they could discuss all that on their department report page, and I guess that's something we have to discuss with the committee if they're willing to do that.
I think who received the grants is public because it's in the budget.
It's not.
It's not, it's just a number.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
because it's 17.5, I think it was.
Yeah.
Oh,
So then.
so I can see it, but the public can't.
Well, they could request it, but
You
it's
could
not
request
printed
it.
anywhere.
Okay, gotcha.
Becky?
As, two things to say now. I would second what Jack has said. I found that report, that summary report of my entire compensation package, very helpful, either as retaining me where I was working or looking around if I was thinking of years down the road. So I think it's very valuable. And Jack's has a copy of what he had at Chemtown, and I have one from my employer at PEA, and they are very different. Maybe not suitable to what the town would produce, but I think it's a very valuable tool, so I would endorse coming up with that kind of report. My second, speaking as chair of the Regional Association Committee, I am all for having a page in the town report about how the deliberations were made and the grants that were given. Very happy to do that, and to report to the town as to the process. So, yes, I'm on board with that.
Thank you.
I think then the board should ask all of the subcommittees to do a page for the town report.
Yeah, I think it would be informative
Sure.
to see what each committee was doing.
Sounds good.
What I have a question, I'm sorry, what is the deadline for doing that?
It will be like February 1st.
February 1st, okay, thank you.
So we should probably get something out to all the chairs of the boards.
I will send out something usually right after the holidays and give them their deadline for town report submissions.
Nothing.
I have something
Motion to
quick for
adjourn.
non-public for like 2 minutes.
You said no non-public.
I know, but I changed my mind. I just want to give you a really quick update on it. 2 minutes, I promise.
Motion to go
Just
into
don't ask me any
non-public for
questions.
What
personnel.
kind of, is it personnel?
Personnel.
Personnel.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor with a, I'm an aye, Jen,
Aye.
Bob,
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Yes. Thank you. Good night. I'll see you on Thursday. Yes, I'll see you on Thursday.
Are you here?
Yes.